All right, before we start off, I just want to confirm. I hope all of you are able to hear me and see my screen. If anybody is having any kind of inconvenience in terms of not being able to hear it or not being able to see my screen, just let me know. All right, on the GoToMeeting panel, there is this option called Raise Hand. You could go ahead and click on that. You might not have the access to unmute the GoToMeeting because this is a demonstration session. So in case you have any questions or you want me to repeat anything, just go ahead and raise your hand so that I'd be able to unmute you and you could ask your question. Parallelly, you could also go ahead and click on the chat and type it on that so that I'd be able to read it out and answer your question as well. So either ways is fine. All right. So before we actually start, let me introduce myself. My name is Emmanuel. I will be doing this training for SAP HANA 2.0, and I'll be the one taking this demonstration as well. This session should be under an hour, so I won't keep you for too long. Let me start off with the agenda for today. So we're going to talk about basically, firstly, the introduction. That's what. Let me give you an overview about the credibility that I have to teach HANA 2.0, and then today's session majorly will be in discussion with the course content. What are we going to cover during this curriculum? Then a brief view about the architecture of SAP HANA 2.0. We will also be talking about where are we heading in terms of HANA 2.0. What is the basic aim of SAP in releasing a newer version of the database? Then we will talk also about our basic support method for the training that we're doing. How do we what kind of material do we provide to you for the certification? Then we'll also talk about the server access and support that you would have a 24/7 server access, and also we'll have a question and answer session at the end so that you could ask me questions. It is not necessary that you will have to wait till the end of the session for question and answers in case you're not able to follow something. Just make sure that you go ahead and raise your hand, then I'd be unmuting you. You could ask your question if you'd want to know it instantly. All right. Now, before, let me first introduce myself. Right, so I have close to 16 years of working experience on SAP. I've started off my career with SAP itself, and my expertise is majorly in data modeling, data replication or data migrations, and visualization. Right. So basically, I have worked extensively on BW on HANA. I'm also working on BW for HANA initially, and also right now I'm working with a client who has a platform which is BW for HANA and also native modeling. Their data provisioning happens using data services and SLT, and then we are reporting on business objects. And I've worked extensively on data migrations using data services I've done a lot of reporting using business objects reporting tools and also non-SAP reporting tools, and also on native HANA. I'm certified on PW and also on HANA. Um, I have done a lot of trainings, or probably this is my 8th year in training. I've done trainings for BW, BW on HANA, BW for HANA, native HANA, data services. So you have questions in and around anything that relates to HANA. You could go ahead and ask your questions if it is related. I'll try to give you the answer as much as possible. Yeah. So at the end of the session, after we go ahead and discuss about this curriculum, I'll also be talking about the certification that you can take, uh, and also the material that we provide for your certification. All right. So any kind of questions that you have, you could ask as well. Okay. Now, a few instructions are that this particular session is a demonstration session. So probably you might not have authorization to unmute yourself. You might not have also authorization to go ahead and record the session. So don't worry about all of this. Techie training, the organizer for this particular demonstration, they should be recording it already. And once this session is complete, the recorded session will be sent to you so that you could go ahead and listen to it in case you need to look through that again. So don't worry about recording the session or taking screenshot. The presentation, curriculum, everything will be sent to you. All right. So concentrate on the session, and any questions you have, you could go ahead and ask. So I am not sure about how many of you have a prior background with SAP HANA, but on the prerequisites for this curriculum, um, the only prerequisite that I would recommend people is that you need to have a little understanding about a database, what you have inside a database in terms of rows and tables and these kind of jargon that you have. And I'll also encourage that you have some idea about joins and join types and cardinality. Though I'm going to explain that in our sessions while we do practicals, it'll be better if you also have that understanding. Knowledge on SQL is definitely an add-on for HANA. HANA is at the heart of it. It's a database and it understands everything in terms of SQL. So if you have SQL knowledge, that will be very helpful with this curriculum, right? So at the back end, there is always this code that is being executed on the engine. So in case there is anything out of the way from a graphical perspective, your understanding on SQL will definitely help you. Now, so coming to the curriculum. So here, I've divided this into 10 or 12 topics that we are going to discuss. These 10 or 12 topics, not necessarily everything an hour or a couple of hours, but they have a certain continuity, right? And so based on that, we have divided that into 10 or 12 sessions. So I'll try to take everything in a stretch, like a session. But initially we'll be doing probably 1 hour sessions, and then we'll increase that to an hour and a half. I don't want to go beyond that basically because it will cause fatigue and you might not be able to concentrate. So we'll cut it down to 1.5 hours a day. And we will be talking about all of these that I'm showing to you on the curriculum. Right? If the discussion is there, that will be more fun in terms of training. Basically, I want it to be more interactive. Now, coming to the curriculum, we're going to talk about the SAP HANA Foundation initially. Now, when I say SAP HANA Foundation, we're going to talk about multiple things. One is basically where is SAP HANA in terms of the enterprise. So if a client has to have HANA, what are his options? Right? Should he go for native HANA? Should he go for BW on HANA? What is his present architecture? Where does HANA fit in? Why does he even need HANA? So I'm basically trying to assess when a customer will need HANA in the enterprise. If he already has a HANA system, then is it correctly being used in terms of using it with different applications? We will try and understand that as well. So that is on the SAP HANA Foundation. Now we will have, we will try and have an understanding as to basically what we can do with SAP HANA as an underlying database. We'll also see how we can access SAP HANA through the SAP HANA Studio. All right, so the first topic that we would be looking at will be on the SAP HANA Foundation. Now, topic 2 will be deployment strategies. So this will help you basically to understand how you can go ahead and have SAP HANA. So previously it used to be only on-premise, but now you have on cloud, and there is also a sidecar approach that you can do for clients who already have a solution and then trying to move to HANA piece by piece. And so we will see what could be the difference in terms of on-premise, on-cloud, and sidecar. Most of the clients have on-premise, but slowly everything is moving to the cloud, so we need to have a little understanding about what is on the cloud and also what is the difference in terms of what we are doing. And then the sidecar approach, how do you basically get into the sidecar approach? How do you discontinue or basically decommission what is already there, and what is your approach of sidecar? So on the deployment strategy, it might be a little too early for understanding this if you think from a solution perspective, but usually this will be helpful in case you're opening a discussion with a client as to how you are going to deploy, and or at least giving an understanding about how you have worked in a previous client engagement. So this will help you with opening a dialogue in terms of SAP HANA. Usually these are your initial questions, so having a clear-cut understanding about deployment options will give you a better approach. Topic 3 is about the architecture of SAP HANA. Now, SAP HANA has been there for almost 5 to 6 years now, and then it started as a data mart, but where it is right now is it's opened a lot of doors with different applications, different areas, and then they're still trying to figure out more functionality with SAP HANA. The core architecture basically lies in using SAP HANA as a database, and there are different applications on top or ETL tools that push data into HANA. The core of entire SAP HANA is the in-memory technology that it uses. And so we will see in the architecture basically what are the different areas that you have with SAP HANA in terms of using the in-memory technology, the row and the column storage. We'll look at it from different perspectives. One is the core is basically the database, but what is the approach in terms of modeling, the approach in terms of data provisioning or data loading, the approach in terms of reporting, and also from an administrative perspective, what are the options that we have. So we will try to have a clear understanding about the architecture of SAP HANA, and this is a part of topic 3. uh, so I'm assuming that you've done your homework in at least knowing what HANA is, and so you know at the core of SAP HANA it is the database. And a database does not generate data by itself. You will have to provide data into the database. Your major options are either you have an application platform on top of the HANA database, or you use an ETL tool or a data provisioning tool to load data into SAP HANA. And in the enterprise, majorly for native HANA, you have two leading technologies which will try to load data into SAP HANA. And one is Business Objects Data Services, or we call that as BODS. This is probably sometimes not real time, and it's called as near real time replication. And then you have the SAP HANA or SAP Landscape Transformation, or we call it in short, or SLT. This is a real time technology to load data from SAP into HANA. You also have this technology extended into a few databases as well. So you can push it from other databases into HANA also at real time. Though you also have a lot of other options in case you're using applications as OData services, and then you have SDI and HDM. All of these are basically technologies through which either you're able to bring data from HANA into other applications, but majorly to bring data into HANA itself as a database. Then you will usually rely on these two technologies to load data into HANA. I will give you a brief overview about what we do in terms of SAP HANA, so that you have a picture about what are the technologies that we will be touching upon. Right? So all of you will have, once you register, you will have access into the server, and the server is an integrated server. You would have pretty much all the leading applications that you will probably use in real time. The HANA Studio, Data Services 4.2, you will have Business Objects, Reporting Tools, Lumira, Predictive Analytics, you will have S4 HANA, ECC on HANA, BW for HANA. All of these will be available for you in terms of access, and all of these are integrated one with the other. So you pretty much have a feel just like working on a production system. Before we actually look at all the tools and how they are linked one with the other, I just want to give you a little overview about what SAP HANA is and how it basically is different from regular systems. We would also come to talk about the other components that we are going to look at in terms of SAP HANA. So by now, pretty much all of you would have had an understanding that SAP HANA is an in-memory database, and why we need to use that is basically for real-time reporting. Just to quickly give you a background of why we need to use HANA and what is the advantage. We've always been working with two major kinds of systems in our landscape, and that is what we have been doing for the last probably 30 years. We have two major systems called as the OLTP and the OLAP systems in our landscape. And the OLTP system is always the system which uh, is responsible for daily business transactions. And here you might have, in terms of daily business transactions, when I say it could be an ECC system, or it could be an S4 HANA system, or it could be a CRM system, or it could be another database or application through which you are generating daily transactions. So, daily transactions in terms of different functionalities, it could be financials, or it could be sales, or it could be inventory or material management, HR or QA, any kinds of systems, or it could be an integrated system where all of these functionalities are integrated like on an ERP. So you have a lot of systems which could be potential sources in terms of using these as the OLTP system. Now, the OLTP systems is a client where you are able to do daily transactions on this application or the system. And apart from this daily transactions, just to have a forecasting of how you're doing and how you have done in the past, and also how you could be doing in the future, you have a system that is a solution from SAP, which basically tries to analyze your data. You don't do all this analysis on the transaction system for the fact that it might slow down the performance of the system, or it is difficult to basically code in terms of reporting features. And so, what do you have in the landscape is usually an OLAP system, which is able to take all the data that you have in terms of daily transactions and then convert it into a way where you can organize all your data. And in terms of SAP's landscape, you have a BW solution, right? And here, this is agnostic about your functionality, about the systems that you use. You could bring in data from any system, you could bring in data from any functionality, and then this system is basically where you're organizing all that individual pieces of data that you have. So to give you that kind of a result, we have the SAP BW system. Right. So here there are different kinds of objects within the BW environment, and these objects basically allow you to model data, right? And then you are able to report on top of that using SAP's Business Explorer, which was a previous version. But now technology after HANA has come in. We've moved on to BW on HANA and BW for HANA with exclusivity of using HANA as a database. Now, each of these applications, either ECC or S4 or CRM or any system that you use, because these are applications, they have a layer underlying them, which is basically a database, and you have traditional databases that you could use, but latest you have SAP HANA as something that we have seen SAP adapt into. So BW also has, again, different databases, and HANA is something that they are moving into. Now, the biggest problem with any of these technologies that we have right now in terms of reporting solution is that we've been modeling on data that is from yesterday. So we always have data that is old by at least 12 to 24 hours. And so this basically what happens by bringing the data from the OLTP into an OLAP system is usually you employ batch job cycles in the night to extract data that you have all the data transactions that you incurred in the day, all of that is moved as batch cycle in the night, and you're trying to report on top of that using the BW or the OLAP system. Right? So this basically causes to report on data that happened at least a day old. So you're always looking at data that is a little older than what is actually happening. So to make strategic decisions, that has become a little difficult in terms of using a BW system. So they needed a solution which is able to go ahead and give you results on the fly or on the go. So during that kind of a position within the landscape, the entire industry was looking for a solution for that. You have the SAP HANA system that was introduced into the landscape. The SAP HANA system is basically called as an appliance. HANA stands for High Performance Analytical Appliance. And an appliance basically is a combination of hardware and software. Though SAP is the one that provides the software, the hardware is basically provided by SAP's partner vendors. These partner vendors are certified to basically provide this configuration for the hardware. It is not one kind of a box that everybody can use. Depending on the kind of data that you have, the amount of data that you have, and the size of your enterprise, there are different hardware possibilities ranging from extra small to extra large kind of servers and with different configurations. And for the vendors to provide this, they have to be certified to basically provide you with this kind of configurations. So the advantage of SAP HANA uh, comes basically with the capability to report on in-memory data. Right. So the traditional approach is basically storing data on a hard drive, and based on your querying method, you retrieve the data either through an application layer or directly, and then you report based on that. But HANA's approach basically was to use the main memory within your system to store the entire data. So the concept of using hard drive has been replaced by storing data on the main memory, and this is basically the in-memory technology that SAP HANA adapts. And this has caused a lot of difference in terms of performance, in terms of the ability of the system itself. And this is where SAP HANA made an entry in terms of the enterprise needing a real-time reporting solution. So SAP HANA has a lot of difference in terms of approach, in terms of the technology that uses from the difference from the traditional approach. The traditional approach, you're storing data on row stores, and you were also basically doing majority of your calculation on the application layer. But SAP HANA is primarily running on the in-memory technology, which is the main reason why you are able to generate reports at real time. That is only a part of the solution, basically because between a hard drive and the main memory or the RAM, you're almost, the RAM is 300,000 times faster than a hard drive. But apart from all of this, the process of being able to calculate, able to analyze a query, and able to process a query is extremely fast within HANA, only when you have already some data within SAP HANA, meaning you need to already have some data into this particular database. Only then you're able to probably generate or report on top of that at real time. But the initial part is being able to go ahead and bring this data into SAP HANA also at real time, or being able to directly utilize that data from the application directly in HANA. So there are multiple options. One is using a data provisioning tool like BODS or SLT within your landscape, where you're able to take the data from a transaction system and move it into HANA so that your data is real-time replicated from these individual functionalities and loading that into HANA. That is one way of looking at it. The other way is where HANA is heading to in terms of the enterprise database. When I say the enterprise database, what you are doing right now is that SAP HANA, just like Oracle or any other database, has different schemas, and you could use these individual schemas as an underlying layer for your individual applications. So when you make a data entry through the application, you're already seeing your data within your SAP HANA Studio or the HANA database interface. So your ability to look at your data is through the application. You have ECC or S4 or BW or anything. But at the back end, you also have the ability to look at the data. This was never possible with ECC or initial versions of BW because SAP had the proprietary so that you're not looking at the underlying database for data, right? Because that would cause inconsistency. But now you have the ability to look at the data using the SAP HANA Studio. So your options have opened. First thing is initially, if you have a heterogeneous landscape where you have SAP and non-SAP systems, you usually choose to have one of these technologies to bring data into SAP HANA at real time. But the other method is to basically utilize the schema of the database, of the enterprise database, and look at the data directly in here using the SAP HANA Studio. Now, the crux of SAP HANA is being able to model the data or basically define relationships or logical relationship between the existing table so that you are able to form meaning out of the data. Now, from the transaction system, what you have is individual tables into which data is loaded. In case you're looking at finance, it could be BKPF, BSEG, or BSID, these kind of tables that are there in finance. Or it could be sales tables, VBAK, VBUK, VBAP, VB. UK and all of these. These kind of tables are in sales and MMHR and QA. So individually, tables are loaded, and those tables are either reflective here, or you could go ahead and replicate those tables into the HANA system. And this is the only persistent layer that you have in terms of HANA. Once your tables and data is available in HANA, as a developer, when you're working on the native HANA system, what you are going to do basically is define a logical relationship between these tables. In case you want to report defining a relationship between finance and sales, then you need to take some finance tables, you need to take the sales tables, and then you need to define relationship between them. When I say relationship, basically you're going to define how they can relate the data between them using join conditions and cardinality. It becomes very essential to have an understanding about what kind of data is there in the table and what kind of joins that we need to use to basically represent that relationship. You also need to know two major areas in terms of data, whether it's master data or transaction data. If it is data that needs to be repetitively used with other transaction tables, you are usually using it for reference, and we call it as master data. And then you also have a transaction data scenario where you are going to basically use that for reporting as well. So you have transaction data and master data, which basically are two major divisions, and you are always reporting in tandem with both of these. So here you have data models, And so far, there is really no difference in terms of how we were doing it between BW and HANA. We are also building data models in BW as well, and we're doing pretty much the same thing in HANA as well. Here is where we are going to differ extremely in terms of technologies. In BW, every layer is repetitively loaded. So there is physical data that is loaded into each of these models. And then finally, you have more something like a multi-provider or infoset or a composite provider. And then on top of that, there is a reporting layer. But here in SAP HANA, the biggest difference is none of the models physically hold any data. Right? So what you're doing is you have a layer of all the tables that physically hold the data, and that is your persistence layer. And that data is there on the main memory itself, which is the RAM. These data models basically allow you to define relationship based on the kind of table and the data that you're using. And so you have the concept of data models called as views. Views are basically relationship between tables defined by a relationship like an inner join or left outer or right outer, and you get to choose what kind of fields that you have. So the advantage of SAP HANA is that you are able to go ahead and define relationship between tables. Now you also have technology where apart from defining just the join types, you also can transform data within SAP HANA using technologies like SDI, Smart Data Integrator, all right, and also SDQ for looking at the quality of data and defining rules on it. So this is basically from the time where native HANA modeling started. It is pretty much the same kind of concept. But in terms of functionalities, these views, majorly of three types, attribute, analytic, and calculation views, have been improved in terms of functionality and what they can do. And we are moving to a point where redundantly we don't want to create views. We're trying to have just one type of calculation views which support pretty much everything, right? So this is where we are heading to. The interface for 2.0 hasn't really changed in terms of what we have from 1.0, right? Now, from time to time, every application usually does an upgrade. You might have a BW system. Previously, it was called as BW. Then there was 7.0 version, 7.1. And then from 7.3, it had this ability to adapt to HANA. 7.3, so they called it as BW on HANA. 7.4, BW on HANA, or BW powered by HANA. 7.5, and then there was BW for HANA, which is the latest release. That is an application upgrade. What we have right now is a HANA 2.0, which is a database upgrade. So you all must have heard about HANA's service packs, SPS 1.0, and then you had 11, or the service pack 6, service pack 7, service pack 8, and then it went on till 11, 12, and then instead of giving a service pack out, they gave a newer version, which is HANA 2.0. Usually, service packs basically are released as a solution for individual bugs or glitches that you have in a database or an application. So the service pack basically addresses a smaller area of issues, and they're released very, very quickly in the market, right? Usually the entire version change doesn't happen as usual as service packs, right? So SAP released the SAP HANA 2.0 in 2017, and so right now they're on Service Pack 2. Right, so we'd be using the same interface. So in terms of how this particular change is going to be reflective in what we do, uh, from 1.0 there might not be a lot of change for a developer, because a developer basically consumes the database in terms of models, in terms of the modeling technology and all of that. But in terms of what an administrator is doing, there is quite some change for 2.0. So 2.0 basically is a database version upgrade than what you have in terms of an application upgrade. So you would be working with SAP HANA. The interface that you would be using with SAP HANA is the Eclipse-based inter interface, and we call this as the HANA Studio. I don't know if any of you have worked or if you're already working on this. The SAP HANA Studio is where you would be working on. So once you register and you have your individual servers, you will find that you have the SAP HANA Studio, which is an Eclipse-based tool, which is basically a solution in terms of looking at the database and developing something on the database, using BW modeling on the database, and also doing a lot more in terms of other technologies and applications as well. So you have this ability with the SAP HANA Studio, right? This is a solution from SAP, and this basically allows you to optimally consume the database, which is being powered by such high configured databases and hardware technology. Right? It runs only on the Linux platform, and so basically you don't have a Windows operating system, you have a Linux operating system. All right, so here at the core of it, this is what we do in terms of native HANA modeling. Now, based on this, these technologies of ECC and BW have also upgraded. These are the closest ones that will be affected by any kind of changes that you have in terms of database or in terms of the appliance itself. So when SAP HANA came into picture, or basically it was introduced, they wanted to try using this as an underlying layer for ECC or S4 or ECC and BW. And so to adapt to this, basically SAP HANA is built or basically supports only star schema modeling, whereas our applications were using extended star schema. So to basically adapt to SAP HANA as a database, they had to also upgrade the versions so that you are able to adapt to the architecture of SAP HANA in terms of star schema modeling. And so ECC came up with a newer service packs, and then BW also came up with newer versions of BW applications, 7.3, 7.4, 7.5. Now the latest that they have is BW for HANA. And then likewise, ECC was called ECC on HANA. Now we call it as S4 HANA, which is basically simplified fourth generation HANA. It is an extension of ECC, but with a simplified functionality and also customized interface that you have. Right? So in terms of 2.0, you might have some questions in terms of what is the difference between 1.0 and 2.0. So there has been changes in terms of the administration piece. So basically it is aimed at simplifying the administration. You also have some control based on merging the database control center. And these are some of the new functionalities that have been added in terms of basis administration. Right? So previously, in case, usually what happens is once you have HANA in your enterprise, then slowly individual applications are upgraded to adapt to HANA. So once you purchase the license for HANA, then slowly you would move to upgrade probably your BW in your landscape to BW on HANA or BW powered by HANA. You will also move from ECC to using ECC on HANA or S4 HANA. And so what happens is usually the SAP HANA system slowly gets a lot of data and at some point is overburdened, right? Because it has no control. You are pushing data and the system is taking it. How much of data can it handle? Usually that is to be planned at the time of initial talks itself, but since usually that becomes a little trivial in terms of licensing, what happens is it gets a little overburdened. So now what the system basically does is there has been additional configuration that has been added so that the system re basically recognizes that there is a certain tasks that are being pushed onto the system or overburdening the system, and so the system rejects certain tasks so that it is not overburdened. And that is what you will find in the latest version, that the system does not wait till it is completely crashing out, but initially gives you the ability and the signs to basically upgrade your space or upgrade your resources basically, so that as HANA system, you don't have any sluggishness in the entire system. So that is one of the biggest changes in terms of 2.0. There is also an additional piece in terms of security improvements that has been added in 2.0. So all the information that is sensitive, all of that, basically usually what happens is when you have a backup and recovery mechanism, your basic data is stored in terms of HANA in two major areas. One is we call it as data volume, and then there is this log volume. Right. So when you are having sensitive data like let's say something about banking information or credit card information or all of that. So in case there is a system crash or any kind of system is going down, your data volumes or your log volumes can be retrieved, and they did not have the perfect security when you're trying to recover that data. So now they have added some encryption root key into that so that you are able to basically go ahead and retrieve the data, and there is additional security in terms of the SAP HANA 2.0. Also, there is newer functionality in terms of the database management that you would be working with in terms of data centers and disaster recovery. So all of this also, we have newer functionality that has been added. So like I said, from a developer perspective, you might not see a lot of change in terms of how 2.0 is going to make a difference for a developer. But if you haven't worked already on the HANA development, then obviously you will need to adapt to the SAP HANA version of modeling and development. So we'll be looking at that. Now also from a perspective of how do you present your data, once you have these views have to be consumed by different reporting tools so that you are able to go ahead and be able to present this data to the end user. HANA also has a visualization individually on the system itself, but that is not for the end user. The end user basically wants to look at your report at real time. So he'll query the data on real time, and your your reporting tool should be able to provide your results at real time. And so you have SAP HANA does not have a proprietary reporting tool. It uses majorly business objects reporting tools or non-SAP reporting tools that can be deployed on HANA. And when these querying tools query down onto the HANA database, your response time is going to be really fast. and you are able to present your data at real time from the transaction system itself. So SAP HANA allows you to uh, bring the data at real time. So we're going to talk also about different reporting tools, how you can consume these models using these reporting tools. All right. So this is where in our landscape HANA is placed. But what we are looking at in terms of what is coming into HANA is one of the biggest challenges that we have in terms of data is there are two major kinds. One is structured data, and there is unstructured data. Right? Structured data is what you have in terms of tables and applications, and basically that is the kind of data that we are dealing with as of now. But if you observe the trend in what is happening in terms of market, you see a lot of unstructured data that is coming through. When I say unstructured data, you have data coming in from, let's say, Facebook or Twitter, or you might have data coming in from WhatsApp, or so all of this data you would want to also be able to analyze data. And so there are technologies of text analysis and also machine learning that is also being integrated into SAP HANA. Right. So what we will see also is basically how SAP HANA is adapting to these. You've seen uh, IoTs, and you've seen machine learnings and things like that also taking over. So in terms of text analysis, we will see how the fuzzy logic basically identifies what the system is looking for in terms of unstructured data, how it is searching for terms. You also have something called as sentiment analysis, where data, you're able to read data from unstructured data, and then you're able to provide the content, or basically the percentage of sentiment in it, whether it's sad or happy or satisfied. The system is going to basically read through your data and provide you a sentiment analysis. So these kind of things are also now linked into SAP HANA. And you have text analysis and all of that also playing quite a role in trying to understand that. SAP HANA is not completely into it, but it is transforming into that, because you don't have a way out. No, everything is going to get transformed basically with these kind of things coming through. And SAP HANA is also adapting to these changes of handling unstructured data as well. So we will look at a high level as to how these are affecting SAP HANA and what kind of applications we have in our enterprise landscape, which basically try to give you that solution. All right. So in a high level, what we're going to talk about, the core of what we're going to talk about is the entire flow from when the transaction is created to the point how we are able to present that data at real time. And all our sessions are practical sessions, probably give you a little theory about how these function and work, but my demonstration for each topic is going to be practical so that you understand and realize how it is done. All right. So coming back to what we are going to see, we will be looking at in terms of core HANA Studio interface. We're going to talk about these three major models: attribute view, analytic view, calculation view. In some enterprises, they've stopped using attribute and analytic views, though SAP hasn't stopped it completely. We use calculation views as a substitute for attribute and analytic views. Now, these are the core that you do in terms of development in SAP HANA Studio. And we make use of these schemas, catalog schemas, to load the data and also utilize um, procedures underlying, or you could go ahead and create tables and then consume that in your models, and then basically materialize that, then use it into your reporting tools. We also have something called as HANA Live, which basically is a browser, allows you to look at all your models in one pane, and also gives you an additional ability to directly report using Lumira and Webby. So these options are also there with SAP HANA Live. It also comes with a business content solution, basically a predefined rapid deployment solution, which is for an instant data mart approach to basically report on a specific functionality. So if your functionality falls in what SAP is already providing, you could use that for a stopgap data mart. Now, for all of these operations, I told you already that an understanding of SQL will definitely give you an advantage. So since we are dealing majorly with columnar data, and I'm going to talk about what basically is columnar data, we are having the necessity to write optimized SQL. Basically, you will need to use group by functions, and so SAP has basically defined a few functions which are optimized with columnar storages, and so we call them as CE functions. Though you have native SQL that you could use, you can use them along with in CE functions. CE functions are nothing but SQL, optimized SQL wrapped as a function. So we will look at that as well. One of the major important things that we do in our landscape is once we finish models, we need to move that across the landscape. And for that, we call that as the transportation mechanism. And we're used to a certain way of how we transport objects within the SAP landscape. It's going to be a little different in terms of SAP HANA. You can take out a object and then push it to another landscape. We call that as a way of how you can move your landscape, not directly within the system, but you can also bring out the skeleton and then move it to a higher level. So we'll understand how it is done with a delivery unit, with a development mode, and also with CDS method, which is basically logging all your transports in another area, and then somebody approving your transports and then moving it to another level. So CTS is also a mechanism that we will be discussing. So we're also going to talk about a little about what kind of changes that you will have in terms of ABAP when you're using SAP HANA, and also the views that you can create there, which are called as the CDS views. So we will see a little bit of how the CDS views are created and how you can consume them. So chapter 5 is basically completely about HANA modeling, and from the original views that you can create in HANA till CDS views, we will look at the SAP HANA Studio interface. Now, to define an end-to-end, you will need a presentation layer as well, and understanding about presentation layer. If you just say, I'm just a HANA developer, you probably might not get the best of a job within a enterprise. You will need also a particular understanding of either reporting or data provisioning tool to go along with HANA. Though there is HANA, you will also need, so that's why I give you an overview about these different reporting tools that can be used with SAP HANA. Webby defined on top of ADT or directly implemented on the view. Crystal Reports Enterprise, Information Design Tool, CMC, Analysis for Office, Design Studio, Lumira, Fiori, UIs with SAP. So we will look at all of these interfaces in lesson number 6. So lesson number 7 is basically the database cockpit, and also you also have the data migration options, or DMO. So when you're upgrading it to uh, a newer version of HANA, how do you do it? And then in case you're upgrading an application uh, or rolling out an existing traditional database and you want to roll in HANA, or you're trying to do an upgrade, your DMO is something that is very commonly used. So we will try to have an understanding about that. Uh, Now, because there are different teams that are going to work with the same kind of data and the same kind of interface, you will also need to understand how you are going to control who sees what data and what can be accessed within the system. So the user management and role management is important. So in terms of that, there is also an upgrade in 2.0 where you can deploy roles at a batch level for a lot of users at the same time. So that also we are going to look at. Some of the advanced features are how you're going to use the Web ID, uh, predictive analytics on HANA, embedded analytics with S4 HANA, the rapid deployment solutions for HANA, and also how to activate the solution manager for SAP HANA. We're going to look at these. They're not the core content of a HANA model, but they're good points to put in your resume in terms of having to use them, or at least having a knowledge of how they are used. And then we have basically a discussion on the certification exam and how you prepare for job interviews. So we'll at least look at 2 or 3 case studies of end-to-end, basically what kind of reports that we are trying to build on a particular model, from where do we bring in these tables, and what are the options that are possible in terms of full loads, in terms of deltas and things like that. So we'll be looking at that as well. Now, your basic uh, setup is to 10 topics, but we might have additional topics from data services perspective or SLT perspective uh, in terms of data modeling and what can be done apart from just modeling in HANA. So we could go ahead and do that as well. I will also try to show you SDI and SDQ, um, which is the latest that you have with SAP HANA, Smart Data Integrator and Smart Data Quality. It's a ripoff of data services into HANA so that you are able to go ahead and make some changes in terms of um, data that you can make changes to HANA. Right? So that also can be done. So if you are, I will come back to HANA architecture, and we'll probably see that in our session 1, where we are heading in terms of SAP HANA platform. Um, but yeah, if you're serious about actually doing this, this will basically enable us to do the certification for HANA 2.0. And this is what we'll be providing you materials for. Just give me one quick moment. All right. Sorry about that. So in terms of certification and the material that we provide, so this is a certification that you can take, and we will provide you all the material that is needed for this, both SAP Plus material and also the SAP certification material. Now, the pillars on which this entire training will be useful is the server access and support. So one is you will have 24/7 server access, and you should not have any issues. But in case there is any kind of maintenance or server restarts, that will be intimated to you to your emails beforehand, so that you don't wait on the server and waste your time. And then you also have a support team which will help you in case of any kind of issues that you have before you reach me, in case something that they can solve. So they will help you with first level support. And in case anything that they cannot resolve, you can contact me as well. So this is the demonstration session. So you were not able to record the session, but once you register, you should be able to record the session on your own, and you can store it on your individual systems as well. So you will have access to recording the sessions. And also, if you have any questions or any topic that you think that we could discuss additionally, and if it's a certain group of people, we could have additional sessions with me. If it is a topic, something that everybody needs, and if it is not mentioned in our curriculum, I will go ahead and discuss that as a separate session. All right. So basically, this is what we've been following all this while, and it's given good results in terms of people making it through jobs or changing career shifts, or for people who already have an understanding of HANA and trying to streamline that. Yes. So basically, this time is open for you to ask questions. Any questions if you have any. Vimal, the recorded session will be sent to your email once this session is complete. The recording is converted to a format that you can download, and that will be sent to you. It will probably take another hour before it is sent to you. And you should be able to download that. Okay. So any questions, guys? Also, in case, so this is going to be a 30-hour curriculum. So Techie Training is the one who's organizing this. So in case you have any questions, just give me a second. So basically, we'd start off with 1 hour per day. Then we'd move on to 1.5 hour per day. So it'll be on a daily basis. And I hope this time works for everybody. So we will have 1 to 1.5 hour session every day. We're looking at 30 hours, but I am sure this will spill over into 35 hours. So yeah, that is basically what we're going to cover for SAP HANA. Just give me a moment. Right, so you can see the slide right now for our contact. So this is organized by Techie Training, and Kalyan will be organizing the training schedule, but I'd be doing the training. Uh, so in case you want to reach out to Kalyan, you can reach out at kalyan@techietraining.com or polokalyan@yahoo.com. If you are in the US, you could call at 201-478-8484. Or if you're in India, it is 880-1000-880. Or you can WhatsApp him as well. You could see our curriculum at techietraining.com, or you can even Skype us. So this is important in terms of any kind of support that you will need. So you could reach us at this. All right. So we have the batch starting from Monday. Monday 8 p.m. is when we are going to start our sessions. So you will have an email sent in terms of schedule. So one more important thing that I forgot to mention. So this email that they send in terms of schedule or recordings and all of that, there is a possibility that it might sometimes go into it might go into the junk folder. So just make sure that you redirect it to your inbox so that any mail communication that we make, you will have that in your inbox from next time on. All right. So just be. Could you tell which course would aim towards that? Yeah, this course will focus on modeling, reporting as well. The core HANA modeling is what we will be looking at in this particular session. Nageshwar Reddy, your question about basis is not what I'd be covering extensively. Probably see initially about how the system works and where do we have each of these system components and all that, but we don't go into the installation and the Linux part. We don't go into that as much. So basically, people, in case you have any questions, let me know. I can I can unmute you if you have any questions. Yes, Dinesh Tiwari, your C HANA AMP certification for HANA 2.0 is what we are looking at.
Thanks, Emmanuel. Thank you.
So the training is on a daily basis. We're not doing it on the weekend. Again, it depends on how you would want to do it and how fast you want to go into it. I'm open to doing it on the weekends as well. It depends on how many of you are ready to do it on the weekend, on weekdays. Based on that, we can take a call. You can send in your details to Kalyan, and then we will decide in case we need to have a weekend sessions as well. Krishna Amirneni, I guess. If I've spelled it wrong, just apologies. So basically, we will be focusing a lot on understanding the data modeling concept. So probably you didn't understand that we'd be talking about it. But our first session, you will have a little clarity on what we will be looking at. So there will be a lot of emphasis on data modeling, data replication or data provisioning, and also how you can visualize all the data that you build in terms of models in HANA with different reporting tools. So we'll be seeing all of that. So it will be almost an end-to-end solution. So if that is what you're looking for, And this is,
Okay.
Vikas.
And also, one more thing for the web IDE will be covered as an overview or will be also worked on that?
So we will basically cover it first as an overview. If you have a specific requirement and if it is something that you want a little more information on that, I will provide you with that. If it is useful for everybody in the session, we can do it as a session. Or, like I mentioned, if there are a group of people who would want that particular thing, then we'll go ahead and look at that as an individual session.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Any other questions, anybody? All right, so I didn't go in depth into the architecture and what holds for HANA 2.0 because it was already an hour and a half. So what I will be doing is we'll cover that as a part of session one. So basically, in terms of predictive analytics and other tools, we are going to look at a scenario and we'll see where it will fit in and basically give you an overview with a practical example. That is how my entire model of teaching is. So I teach a little bit of theory and then we'll practically work on it. Based on the questions that we get out of it, we will be looking at those. So that's how it works. Uh, So basically, in terms of BPC, BW, embedded analytics, we will be looking at that. So that will just be an overview. We will not drift away from the core of HANA. All right. All right. So any other questions, guys? All right. So just make sure and realize that there will be emails sent to you. Also, I think the if you're serious about the doing this curriculum, they might have also sent you the payment details and how you need to pay to register and all of that. So make sure you go through that, and if you're serious, then register yourself. You will have access into the servers, the material, and all that. So if you are by any chance not able to see what the email in your inbox, then look at your spam folder or junk folder and redirect it to your inbox so that you will have future mails coming into your inbox. All right. All right, guys. Thanks for your time. I will see you all on Monday. All right. Once again, this is Emmanuel from Techie Training signing off for today. Bye for now.